Well, hello again, sweet honey pie. This is part 4 in a 5-part series of what is rocket fuel to intentional manifestation. And I was inspired to create this 5-part series based on an interview I saw with Oprah and Gary Zukav, in addition to a miniseries I've watched as an introduction to Eckhart Tolle's conscious manifestation. And I just loved listening to Eckhart Tolle in his 5-part miniseries. Each video is like 7 to 10 minutes long, if that. But it was so helpful and useful, and his energy field and mojo are just so yummy that you really can start getting the nuance of how to create what you want in your life, as opposed to how to create the opposite of that. And due to the fact that our planet is, in general, of lower consciousness, it's helpful to understand how mass consciousness can affect your intention to manifest positively in positively oriented ways. And the law of attraction has helped many of us understand that we are the creators of our own experience, which calibrates at 350 on the map of consciousness as true. So if you want to be a powerful creator, you got to step into the higher consciousness of accepting responsibility for your own life and letting go of the need to blame and shame others for anything in your life. You are the sole creator. So I'm Liz Garcia. I am your happy host of trumpeteroftruthradio.com, my podcast, and trumpeteroftruth.tv.com on the YouTube channel. And this is a place to discover what I call the foundational basics and essential understandings for raising your level of consciousness and building a better life. And I support this intention by putting power and truth into context based on Dr. Hawkins' book, The Map of Consciousness, which is a proven energy scale to actualize your ultimate human potential. So today is part 4 in my 5-part series. And I really wanted to do this because there's so much interest in law of attraction, intentional manifestation, setting intentions. How do you set intentions? How to manifest what you want? And Eckhart Tolle has really got it kind of dialed in on the higher level of consciousness, like in the spiritual domain or in the essence of who you really are, as opposed to that lovely egoic mind, or what Dr. Hawkins calls the narcissistic core of the ego. I love that. Not to demonize it. We don't want to demonize it. We want to honor and respect and understand that the ego by nature, its energy by nature, is of lower consciousness, lower mind, and loves to dwell in negativity, destruction, wantingness. It's not fully always true. I mean, the lower mind can be of higher consciousness, which I spoke about yesterday, between 200 and 275 on the map. So today I wanted to kind of put in my 2 cents on Eckhart's, I think it's his 3rd video. This is my 4th part, because I wanted to talk about Oprah and Gary Zukav's conversation about intention setting and manifestation in the first video. So this is my part 4 that has to do with you being intended to be of higher consciousness, raising your level of consciousness, and being the best that you can be in life, and its effect on the collective consciousness of all of us. And the positive effect has a rippling power to mass consciousness. Calibrates as true on many levels. So in order to be of higher consciousness on anything that you do, you've got to understand there's a pathway to that. And it doesn't matter what you want to do. If you want to be another Oprah Winfrey, you got to be a powerful manifester and of higher consciousness on many fronts, highly disciplined master at setting intentions, aligning with truth, aligning with higher power, intending to serve the highest good, and being of service to life in general. That's one intention you could have. And she's got it nailed, which I spoke about earlier. Her show was arguably certainly one of the most highest rated talk shows on the planet ever. And her show calibrated in the 500s, which is kind of indicative of what level of consciousness is required to impact the world in a positive way. So her impact on the world is what I'm talking about, this rippling out of energy. She's kind of created a pathway to success on many levels. She's a pioneer. She's a forger of truth and success for women, for African Americans, people of color, all of us in raising our consciousness in general, understanding the significance of setting intentions for your life, aligning with truth and power and love, as opposed to fear and lack and lower consciousness. And I wanted to put into context, it doesn't matter what you do. You know, God is infinite. God, and we're all infinite spirits in general, and each one of us is happy to serve the whole from the level of spirit. And an example would be, you know what? God's like, yeah, we need a really good accountant here in the United States. And the spirit would be like, I'll do that. Or we need someone who can sing like Whitney Houston. I'll do that. In fact, I've put I'm on the wait list for that one. I'm like, bucket list spirit. I want to have the voice of Whitney Houston in my next life. And I have a great example. Eckhart uses the example of a hairdresser, how a hairdresser that's really good at their craft, they're really good at listening, they're really good at washing your head and giving you that awesome hair massage. And it's this level of like mastery of hairstyling and mastery of anything calibrates at 450 on the map of consciousness. That's huge. That's a huge rippling effect no matter what you do. If you master it and you're at that level, you affect life in significant ways for everyone around you. It ripples out into your own life in abundance. And, there certainly could be areas where you're operating from lower consciousness, which all of us have some, weakness in our foundation that we're well aware of because it's a pattern throughout our lives. But Eckhart and Dr. Hawkins talks about this rippling effect in consciousness, that the universe is all about expansion. That's its nature. It's about expanding into higher consciousness, lovingness, oneness. That's the map. The higher you go up, the more love, inner peace, inner joy, enlightenment, awareness of self as godding, you become aware that God is godding within you and everybody else that you look at. And I have had experiences like this, as has Dr. Hawkins, and of course, Buddha and Jesus. That's the experience. Enlightenment is a subjective experience and state of being that's rare in this world. So I want to put into context the rippling effect of you deciding to accept that you're the creator of your own life. That's a very high level of consciousness at 350. And when I first heard that from Esther and Jerry Hicks from the Law of Attraction, they always say you've got to be willing to accept you're the creator of your own experience. I did not want to accept that when I first heard it because I created some horrific experiences in my life. So when I understood that was of higher consciousness. When I came in across the map of consciousness, like I'm like, oh, okay, I can't make excuses anymore. I got to take responsibility. I got to belly up to the bar and take responsibility for every part of my life. Stop blaming, shaming anyone else. No more of that. You can't do it anymore. So I loved the story that Eckhart told about the hairdresser. You have this experience when you go to the hairdresser where you just feel good. And he speaks about their presence. They have this presence about them, which I feel when I go to good hairdressers, and it's just a delight to just be sitting in that chair, saying nothing, experience the feeling of their mastery, letting them do what they do. And you just feel better when you leave. You're like, what is that? And Eckhart's describing this is their consciousness. It's their presence with you while they're listening to you. You're conversing with each other. They're making you feel good. They're making you look good. This is what presence is when you're fully engaged in the present moment, enjoying, what the experience is, and you're not spinning off in your head about what's happening in the next hour. You're present with, and when you find someone that gives a great massage or facial or haircut, I personally just stop the mind and enjoy the moment. So that's just one way you can practice the present moment. And it doesn't matter what you do. And a great example I have this friend who was a high up muckety muck at BFI or Waste Management, one of the big trash collecting businesses. And he used to work for them. And then he started his own trash collecting business in where I live in the mountains of Colorado. And one day I built his website, and one day we're sitting down talking, and he was giving me lessons about recycling, the real deal with trash collecting, what's really going on there. And I tell you, this man is like the Buddha of trash. His energy, his presence, his mastery of what trash collecting is all about at a higher level was just thoroughly engaging. And again, this is what Eckhart's talking about, this presence. And he's a super successful guy, loving what he's doing, because it's more than, he's not just focused on the picking up the trash. He's focused on the customer service, the being of service, everything. So this is like at spirit level, he's like, I'll be a trash collector or I'll manage a big trash collecting company. It requires you jumping into entrepreneurship. Management at high levels is a higher level endeavor that requires education, experience, the tortoise and the hare thing. You're the tortoise of this, mastering your craft. So when you start to master your craft, others can feel it. They can feel, if you're a master at something at 450 on the map of consciousness, there's a significant consciousness of power and presence in your auric field. Essentially, people can feel your mastery, your intelligence, your excellence at what you do, and you're going to want to hang out with them. Just like I could have sat for days listening to the Buddha of trash. So I highly recommend you listen to Eckhart Tolle's short video on this, because he talks about the significance of wisdom beyond experience. I mean, all of us gain wisdom through experience, but wisdom is of higher consciousness at 385 on the map of consciousness, which is aligning with truth and letting go of what you think and really being present in your own experience, especially if you're going to share wisdom of what you've learned, through trial and error and conflict and suffering. That he speaks about wisdom a little bit differently than I, because I understand the level of consciousness of wisdom, which is a super high level of consciousness for someone just to intend to be wise and of service to others is huge. And that has a rippling effect out into the world. So in fact, on that topic, wisdom calibrates at 385 on the map. Now, you've got to understand that we are all a mixed bag of consciousness on a wide variety of topics. If we're a master at something, we're of higher consciousness on that particular topic. We've mastered, playing an instrument, being a potter, being an artist, being a teacher, being a plumber, being a building contractor, whatever it is that you are, being a CEO of a company or an entrepreneur. If you've mastered it, you're operating at a high level of consciousness, which is not to say you can't be operating at a low level of consciousness in regards to relationships with the opposite sex or how you view yourself. Really importantly, many of us view ourselves or perceive ourselves from a low level of consciousness, which really holds no truth. So I want to put into context, like I really understood this when I saw it in Dr. Hawkins' book, Power versus Force here. There's a section on the back of the book that speaks about how powerful people at higher level of consciousness are. Now, he starts at individuals that are at the level of 300. And I think the level of 300 is significant because we're still susceptible to the lower mind at below 275. So between 200 and 275, the lower mind or the egoic mind can subtly, sabotage you. And that's like kind of what sabotage is. It's this lower consciousness coming in. It collapses your sense of self. Then you have fear and doubt and anger and whatever. That's a sign that the lower mind or lower consciousness is creeping into your experience, and you got to pay attention to it. You're like, oh, okay, I see this. But when I understood the significance of being of higher consciousness in regards to the rippling effect out into consciousness, I'm like, oh, wow, I can really make a difference in the world by being whatever I want to be. You can be a hairdresser, you can be the Buddha of trash and still have a rippling effect out in the world. You don't have to be Oprah to impact the whole world. So here's some calibrations. One individual that calibrates at the level of 300 on the map of consciousness counterbalances 90,000 people that calibrate below 200. That's pretty huge. Just by being who you are, being present, and this is what Eckhart's all about with the power now, your presence, being who you are, being a master at what you do, being who you want to be. In the 300s, counterbalances 900,000 people. One individual at level 400 counterbalances 400,000 people below 200. So this is a huge leap. And, the map of consciousness is logarithmic. So 10 to the 300th power versus 10 to the 400th power is quantum in nature. And the power and the level of truth that's present at these levels is significant. So to be a master at whatever you do at 450, you could be teaching in a room full of people and you're counterbalancing a lot of people in the room. And that's rippling out into your entire, your surroundings, your town, your state, 400,000 people. You have a big effect. That consciousness, imagine just rippling out into the world for sure. It's not limited by region, but you know what I'm saying. Now, there is some truth to being in the presence of a enlightened being for sure. There's more than enough evidence that you can feel their presence. You can feel the transmission of higher consciousness. And And when I was reading this book recently, this Map of Consciousness book, he has a whole chapter about Alcoholics Anonymous and 10-step programs. Those groups calibrate in the 500s. And you want to stay a part of that group. This is a physicality because the energy is present. This is why I'm talking about words. It has an effect on you energetically when you're around others that are in this field. And when people quit Alcoholics Anonymous, they fall off the wagon because they're not in the presence of this field, which is required to keep you on track at higher levels of consciousness. So one individual at the level of 500 counterbalances 750,000 people below 200. Again, imagine, if you decide you want to be of higher consciousness and you say, you know what, I'm going to be in the 300s, period, which, by the way, is not maybe, I don't know, not many people in this world. 15% of this world calibrates above 200. So it's rare, but it's not out of reach for sure, because we all have it within us to be of higher consciousness. We just don't know any better until now. So to be at level 500 counterbalances 750,000 people. That's huge, right? If you live in like a big city, imagine that your intention to be in the 500s is counterbalancing negativity of an entire city. Wow, that's huge. The next level up is 600, which is super rare. At last count, only, I think that in the last 20 years, there was only like 22 people above 600. Then it went down to 12 people because, enlightened beings come and go because there's no need to be here in the body. But someone at 600 counterbalances 10 million people below 200. That's huge. This is Mother Teresa. Actually, the next level is Mother Teresa land. Mother Teresa calibrated in the 700s, and people in the 700s counterbalances 70 million people below 200. I wonder if it's any coincidence that she ended up in India on the streets, poverty-riddled streets of India. Her presence counterbalanced everyone that came into contact with her. 70 million people. So it's just good to know if you want to just raise your level of consciousness, get into the 300s, even to go up 1 point on the map in the 300s it's exponential in nature. So you're really offsetting negativity and counterbalancing the negativity of the world. So I just wanted to read, I have one more note about this particular video 3 of Eckhart Tolle's. He's talking about this, embodying the presence of who you are, the mastery of what you do, the higher consciousness and wisdom that you care to align with. You need to access the dimension where wisdom arises. And this is a practice that I do all the time because my intention is to speak the truth at higher levels of consciousness. It doesn't have to be in the 600s or 700s or 1,000. Dr. Hawkins does that. And not everyone gets him because we're not there yet. So my intention, I do a little prayer, and this is helpful, a little prayer. This is a power position to hold your hands in prayer, and you hold it in front of your heart. And now you're kind of invoking divinity and higher consciousness by saying, I am willing to be of service and serve the highest good. I'm happy to be of service, really. This is how I actually feel. And it's my intention to fuel all what I do with higher consciousness and love and serve the highest good and speak the truth. I don't need to be right about anything. And with that kind of intention, letting go of the need to be right, being neutral and being understanding, I'm willing to let go and allow consciousness the truth come through me. That's why I don't really plan what I'm going to say much, because I don't want the head to get in the way. I don't want to mentalize anything too much. I have a little bit of a structure, but allow higher consciousness to speak through you. And that's a great practice. But you'll find that when you set that intention, stuff that is not true is going to come up into your awareness that you need to learn to let go of. So, anger can come up, rage, disappointment, bitterness, wanting to be right and prove others wrong. It's going to rear its little head if you decide you want to align with truth and serve the highest good. That which is not aligned with that will show up and say, hey, you got to get rid of this here. So that's part 4 of the rocket fuel for intentionally manifesting what you want in your life, and understanding that when you do set higher intentions to be aligned with truth and higher consciousness, you have a significant rippling effect that counterbalances the negativity of those that are operating below 200 on the map. Tomorrow is the last video in my 5-part series on rocket fuel for manifesting what you want. And it's going to be a quickie because I just want to share what I got out of Eckhart's last video, or second to last video in his series. So again, I highly recommend you opt in for Eckhart's free 5-part mini series about conscious manifestation. I'm following it with my videos, but he says it in a different way, from a different angle, a different perspective, different experience than I have had. And this free mini series is an introduction to this year's conscious manifestation course that he does every year, because it's so darn friggin' popular. And it's no wonder, because according to consciousnesscalibrations.com, Eckhart Tolle is a teacher of higher consciousness at a very high level. Learning from him, soaking up what he has to say, integrating the consciousness that he shares will shift you in significant ways. So it's worth the price of admission to be in the presence of a master. So links to that free webinar series, you can find that below the video, as well as access to his Conscious Manifestation Course 2021, which starts June 28th. And if those links expire, I apologize, but they do expire. I don't know that the freebie will, but I think it does. There'll be links for you to sign up for an email so that we can keep you in touch of the next conscious manifestation class, or anything to do with Eckhart Tolle or manifestation in general. We have lots of other options and courses for you to consider if you miss Eckhart's course. So I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll wrap it on up. Have a great one.